Ladies and gentlemen, the opening ceremony is about to start. Please be seated. Your Excellencies, the Rector of UIN Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta, Professor Dr. Phil Almakin, MA, PhD, the Dean of the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Education, UIN Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta, Professor Dr. Hajah Sri Sumarni, MPD, Professor Martha C. Beck from Arkansas University, USA, Associate Professor Jenny Ritchie from Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand, Avash Kumar Saha, MTech, MD from National Institute of Technology, Durgapur, India. Distinguished guests, participate, ladies and gentlemen.
أيها السعداء الكرام ستبدأ البرنامج عن قريب الرجاء من الخضوع والاهتمام المكرم رئيس جامعة الإسلامية الحكومية سنن كاليجاغا يوغياكارتا الأستاذ الدكتور المكين MA المكرم عميد كلية العلوم التربوية وتأهيل المعلمين الأستاذة الدكتورة سري سمارني MPD سادات الأستاذة مرتبك PhD من أرخنساس الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية سادات الأستاذة جيني ريتشي من جامعة فيكتوريا ويلينغتون سادات أفاش كومار ساها MTech MD من جامعة NITD بالهند ويا أيها المشتركون الكرام السلام عليكم warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Firstly, let's thank to the Almighty Allah who has given us mercies and blessings so that we can attend this agenda. Secondly, salawat and salam may always be given to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who has guided us from the darkness to the lightness.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin Al-Mun'im bini'amin la tuqaddar Hatta najtami' iftiradhiyan Fi hadhal yawm bis-sihah wal-afiyah As-salatu wassalamu ala nabiyyina al-Mustafa Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam Alladhi qad arshadan nasa ila siratil mustaqim.
Distinguished guest, participant, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and we are delighted to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the International Conference on Religion, Science and Education 2022, Building Science and Religion for Sustainable Education in the 21st Century, organized by the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Education, UIN Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. It is our pleasure and honor to be the master of ceremony for this seminar. We would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you who have taken off your busy schedule to join us today.
أيها المستمعون الكرام صباح الخير ومرحبا بكم في حفل افتتاح الندوة العالمية للدين والعلوم والتعليم عام 2022 التي تنظمها كلية العلوم التربوية وتأهيل المعلمين جامعة الإسلامية الحكومية سنن كاليجاغا يوغياكارتا إندونيسيا. إنه لمن دواعي سرورنا وشرفنا أن نكون رئيس الجلسة لهذا البرنامج. نود أن نرحب ترحيبا حارا بكم جميعا.
This conference brings together academia, researchers, practitioners, and policymakers who are responsible for the improvement of knowledge by the integration and interconnection of religions, science, and education in the complex transdiscipline era. This conference surely provides a great opportunity for prospective participants to share their recent theoretical knowledge, research findings, and experiences in dealing with knowledge integration and interconnection. As such, this conference will feature presentations by international speakers, which are cutting-edge session topics.
تجمع هذه الندوة والباحثين والممارسين وصانعي السياسات المسؤولين عن تطوير العلوم من خلال التكامل والترابط بين الدين والعلم والتعليم في عصرنا الحاضر. توفر هذه الندوة فرصة رائعة للمشاركين لمشاركة معارفهم النظرية الحديثة ونتائج البحوث والخبرات في التعامل مع تكامل المعرفة والترابط. ولذا ستقدم هذه الندوة عروض تقديمية من قبل متحدثين من أنحاء العالم.
Today's programs are opening, recitation of Al-Quran, singing Indonesia Raya Anthem and UIN Sunan Kalijaga Anthem, welcoming speeches, plenary session, closing, and parallel session.
برنامج اليوم الافتتاح قراءة القرآن الكريم النشيد الوطني إندونيسيا رايا النشيد للجامعة الإسلامية الحكومية سنن كاليجاغا الكلمة الترحيبية الجلسة العامة الاختتام ثم الجلسات المتوازية.
Excellencies, participants, ladies and gentlemen, to begin this conference, may I invite everyone to pray to the Almighty and recite Kitab together.
أيها الحفل الكريم تعالوا نبدأ برنامجنا اليوم بتلاوة الفرقان الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Thank you. We are now going to listen to the recitation of Al-Quran, which will be delivered by Kiki Krismawati. Kiki, the floor is yours.
سنستمع الآن إلى تلاوة القرآن ستتلوها كيكي كريسماواتي. الوقت إياها.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. وهديناهما الصراط المستقيم وتركنا عليهما في الآخرين. سلام إنا كذلك نجزي المحسنين إنهما من عبادنا المؤمنين وإن إلياس لمن المرسلين إذ قال لقومه ألا تتقون صدق الله العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you. Excellencies, participants, ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is singing Indonesia Raya Anthem and UIN Sunan Kalijaga Anthem. I would like to invite the audiences to stand up, please. Tiara Permata will lead the anthem. Tiara, the floor is yours.
والبرنامج بعده النشيد الوطني والنشيد للجامعة الإسلامية الحكومية سنن كاليجاغا. أود دعوة المشتركين للوقوف لأختنا تيارا برماتا. الوقت إياها.
Excellencies, participants, ladies and gentlemen, we shall begin with the first welcoming speech delivered by the Dean of the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Education. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Profesor Dr. Hajah Sri Sumarni, MPD.
أيها الحفل الكريم سنستمع الآن إلى الكلمة الترحيبية من عميد كلية العلوم التربوية وتأهيل المعلمين الأستاذة الدكتورة سري سومارني MPD. يتكرم سيادتها مشكورا.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Your Excellencies, Professor Dr. Pil Almakin, MAPSD, Rector of State Islamic University Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta, Professor Dr. Martha Bex, PhD, from Arkansas University, USA, Associate Professor Jenny Ritchie, from Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand. Afas Kumar Saha, MTech MD, from National Institute of Technology, Dugapur, India. Head and Secretary of Senate, Vice Deans, Head and Secretary of Study Programs, lecturers, students, and all of the participants of this international conference. First of all, let's say thanks to Allah for giving us mercy and blessing, and the opportunity to join this international conference. We should also always send salawat and salam to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I am delighted to hold this international conference with three excellent presenters. From USA, Professor Martha Bex. Good morning, Prof. Has she joined this room? From New Zealand, Professor Jenny Ritchie. I'm happy to see you, Prof. Okay. And from India, Afas Kumar Saha, MTech MD. Thank you very much to be here, sir. And also 225 presenters from various universities in Indonesia. I also would like to thank to the rector, vice rector, vice deans, and the conference committee, especially the head of Biology Education Study Program, Dr. Jafat Lufi, to the organizing committee, lecturers, and students who support this international conference on religion, science, and education. Recently, our faculty has focused on implementing international programs such as international guest lecturers, international student mobility, research collaborative, international community services, and currently conducting an international conference. In this conference, we discuss bridging science and religion for sustainability education in the 21st century. which aims to strengthen and implement the vision and the core values of State Islamic University Sunan Kalijaga Yogyakarta. That is the integration and the interconnection between science and religion for civilization. Furthermore, it also aims to respond to the rapid changes caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and globalization. The changes that bring us to the disruption era, which cause complex and interconnected problems. To solve these complex problems, we need not only a monodiscipline, but also intra, multi, and transdiscipline paradigm. This conference will discuss deeply about it, started by 3 main presenters and continued by 225 presenters. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Education, State Islamic University Sunan Kalijaga Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Thank you for your presence to share knowledge and experience with us. Thank you and enjoy this conference. May we all take the blessing and benefit. Before I close, I would like to invite Bapak Rektor, Profesor Dr. Pil Almakin, MAPSD, to open this conference. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Prof. Marni, for the very warm welcoming speech. The second welcoming speech will be delivered by the Rector of UIN Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta, and we would like to request to Your Excellency to officially open this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Phil Almakin, MA, PhD.
نشكركم على الكلمة الممتازة وبعدها الكلمة الترحيبية ثم افتتاح الندوة رسميا من رئيس الجامعة الإسلامية الحكومية سنن كاليجاغا الأستاذ الدكتور الماكين MA يتكرم سيادته مشكورا.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for organizing such a very great conference for the committee, the head of the committee, Pak Lutfi Ja'far. Thank you very much, Pak Lutfi. Pak Lutfi Ja'far is not only good in science and teaching, but also in playing guitar. So his voice is very good. So please next time play your guitar and sing for all of us. But this is such a good conference. And thank you Pak Suharyanto, who picked me up in the parking lot. I would like to thank those who attend in this room. Ibu Dekan, of course, Professor Sri Sumarni, who's always highly spirited and full of enthusiasm. Thank you for your leadership, making this faculty very lively. And Vice Dean Professor Munib, wearing very nice suit and hat is very handsome. Thank you for your good performance and good style and a good taste in fashion. And for those who always smile and happy and always remember his wife, Pak Zainal. Thank you, Pak. I'm sure you are very happy, and we are very happy to see you always smiling at us. Thank you. And Vice Dean Sri, Prof. Pak Dr. Mahali. I saw him this morning, Pak Mahali. He's hiding somewhere, but I'm sure he's also very happy. And I would like to greet some of my friends, particularly my old colleague and friend who's worked with me and who learned English together with me, Pak Rinduan Sen. Thank you very much, Pak. And this morning he told me about his son, Dave, who worked in a Google office in Singapore. And congratulations. Pak Rinduan is old friend of mine. We used to learn English together, and then we work together, we learn together in McGill University in Montreal. And I would like to mention some names of you, Ibu Ratna, head of the office in Tarbiyah faculty, who's always also smile and greet everyone. Ibu Prof. Ernie, Ibu Prof. Isti, almost, yeah, Prof. Isti, Mbak Dail is there, Ibu Jamil, Bu Isti Amah, yeah. Bu Naimah, and everybody. Thank you very much. And I would like to greet our guest, our old friend, and always give us insights and give us generous compliments to what we have done and work for. Professor Martha Beck, who just returned from Jogja to United States of America. He's in Arkansas, USA. Thank you very much. And I read your lovely email, but please, my deep apology, I didn't reply you yet, but I will. Thank you for your generous compliment and give some appraisal and so many feedbacks for all we have done and all our endeavors. And Associate Professor Jenny Ritchie from School of Education, Wellington, New Zealand, and Avash Kumar Saha is from Institute of Technology, India. Thank you very much. And I would like to congratulate all the papers. I read few abstract, in total 250 abstracts. That is such lovely. That is great efforts. I'm sure it's not only abstract, but as a result of contemplation and also researches. Please, I would like to return to two important speeches in the last months of two professorships, Pak Sukiman and Ibu Ernie. And I think it's closely related to the title of this conference, Bridging Science and Religion for Sustainable Education in the 21st Century. Professor Sukiman reminds us in his paper and his speech the critique of education of religion that failed to bring the betterment of morality. Our education of religion compared to Japan, to Australia, to New Zealand, and to Scandinavian country shows that it's not leading to good result. Because our education of religion is more like formality and just to fulfill the requirements and compulsory, not from our deep insight that will bring a good or improvement of our performance as our graduate who become leaders in our country, doesn't show that their religious education brings more benefits. That is, I think, very important critics. And today I think is very pertinent to discuss how religion and science relates. And as a result, we have to think carefully that religion oftentimes fail to provide a better contemplation and better ponder of this society. And please return to Prof. Sukiman, and we have to appreciate his insight. And secondly, I have to remind Ibu Erni Munastiwi's papers and her speech. She calls upon us to return to the basic education of thinking critically and thinking creatively. She reminds us of Misuari principle and also the founding father of education in Indonesia, Ki Hajar Dewantoro. Our educations should give a birth to critical thinking and should lead us to more creative endeavor, not only to memorize and to remember formula, doctrine, or merely ideology. And recently, we know that all of education from elementary to high level of education like university, like our level, mostly repeats of the old dogma. And our students are forced to repeat what we have done and to memorize all knowledge, not to develop and find a new kind of strategy. I think this call is very important from Professor Munastiwi. We should ponder. And today, this conference, I think, is very important in its own way. We have to think carefully that science and religion in our university have been long become not only a problem, but also opportunity. Yes, when there is a problem, it means also opportunity. When there is obstacle, it's always our way. And this crisis, we have to consider that science, religion, and education is a crisis. Crisis is also a good thing for us. It means crisis give us opportunity to think, give us opportunity to solve, and give us opportunity to take a certain role, how to find solution, or at least to propose a way, to find a new way. And I think today, particularly when religions, science, and politics become one in mix up, sometimes it gives us a very confusing messages. And I wish this conference is very productive, and I wish this conference gives us a forum and media to think, and I think we should listen to each other, and this conference gives us opportunity to present our ideas and to share with friends, not only to celebrate and not only to be very crowded with opening ceremony, but later we carefully read their papers and publish in our journal. And please remember old saying of Seneca. He's a mentor of Caesar Nero during the Rome time. He says, please be your own spectator and applaud. So we should applaud this conference. So please give us applaud this conference. All in all, let us open this conference with a good intention and good prayers by reciting Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I wish we all happy, and I wish we all healthy, and we have a free time to meet each other. And the pandemic, I'm sure, is over. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Almakin, for the very warm welcoming and the very inspiring opening remarks. Excellencies, participants, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to move to the plenary session of the conference, which will be delivered by three prominent speakers. Professor Martha C. Beck from Arkansas University, USA, Associate Professor Jenny Ritchie from Victoria University, Wellington, New Zealand, Avash Kumar Saha MTech MD from National Institute of Technology, Durgapur, India. And for this, we would kindly invite Bapak Rinduan Zain MA to moderate the session. Bapak Rinduan Zain is one of the lecturers here at the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Education. He took his 2 master degrees from McGill University, Montreal, and he also took his doctorate degree in University of New South Wales, Australia. His academic interests are educational sociology, religious studies, and political Islam. He is also active in international research in counter-extremism.
أيها المستمعون الكرام أينما كنتم الآن نمضي إلى الجلسة العامة الذي سيلقيها الأستاذة مارتا بيك PhD من أركنساس الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية والأستاذة جيني ريتشي من جامعة فيكتوريا ويلينغتون وأفاش كومار سها MTech MD من جامعة NITD بالهند. ومع ذلك نود أن ندعو الدكتور رندوان زين MA كمدير الجلسة. هو الآن محاضر في قسم إدارة التربية الإسلامية كلية العلوم التربوية وتأهيل المعلمين جامعة الإسلامية الحكومية سنن كاليجاغا. يتكرم سيادته مشكورا.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bapak Rinduan Zain MA.
Okay, check. Okay, thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. So finally, we are arriving at the panel for today on this morning ceremony. We're going to start up that we have such very good theme for our conference as preaching science and religion for sustainable education. Well, actually, it has become an issue for us, combining, integrating science into religions and religion into science. It has been old story for us, transforming from institution to university, where the current issues is on integration and interconnection of science and religion. But today, it's becoming more contextual, when we would like to integrate that in a way that we can have sustainable development by means of education. That's then we are pretty lack of. Therefore, we're going to have 3 speakers of different nationals and thus different expertise. The first, we're going to have, we're going to have Martha Beck, professor from Lyon University, from Arkansas University of United States of America. Then the second one, we're gonna have Jenny Ritchie, professor from Wellington, from Victoria University, Wellington, New Zealand. And the third one, we're gonna have I hope I can spell and pronounce the name correctly. Avash Kumar Saha from India. So first of all, I would like to greet Martha. Martha, are you with us already? Good night, Martha. Should be night in there. I just want to make sure that Martha already with us.
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Martha, can you say hi to us? Just want to make sure that you are really together with us this morning.
I'm here.
Oh, thanks very much, Martha.
Yes.
I think we already met here somewhere at the university and had a light discussion. And thanks very much that this morning we can have it together with you. What time is it in there right now, Martha?
Oh, it's just at night, 8 o'clock at night. It's
8
8-hour
o'clock
difference.
at night. Okay. Well, it's like 11 or 12 hours difference from here to get there. Well, Martha, thanks very much for the paper you're going to present this morning. Connecting Pancasila and Islam in Indonesia to Aristotle's virtues and current international model for education for sustainability. And yes, you are the correct person to speak of it because you've been to Indonesia, you've been doing a lot of research in here, and you know more about Pancasila and how to connect that actually in a way that Pancasila is the combination of religion and science. But I'm not so sure if we can combine that in a way that we can have sustainable development by means of education. So we would like to know more about your expertise and your knowledge in this issue. So we'll welcome you. Now is time yours. Please, Martha.
Okay, can I share the screen?
Sure.
Here, let me get my presentation here. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll see if this is the one. Oh my. I practiced this a million times, but okay. Try this. Ah. Okay. Oh my goodness, just
Well, Martha, you shouldn't worry much because actually we all have your paper. Well, finally.
okay. Is this the paper? No, this is me. All right. I'll try again. I mean, well, it should be this one.
You got to click on share screen first, Martha, down the bottom. Yeah, that's good. Yep.
Wait.
Yeah,
Oh,
close that.
share screen. Okay. And where is it sharing? Is it sharing? Do you see it?
Well, can you close that windows we have right now? You right
Okay, just-
now. You go to the corner, then just close that.
Share? Oh, boy. Okay. Could anybody send it to me on, I sent it on an email attachment to Arifa. I have it on my desktop. Oh,
Martha,
gosh.
Martha, excuse me.
Yeah.
Let me ask the organizing committee if one of them can have it live shared with us. Can the organizing committee help with that? Can you just click on it? Yep. So, Martha, don't worry too much
Yeah.
because the organizing committee couldn't have it lively with us. So you just say something while we have the paper with us.
Yeah, okay. Now I've got the wrong gallery thing. All right. I'll start. And then they'll, oh my gosh, they'll figure out how to share it. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Where do I go to? Okay. All right. Can people see me okay?
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually,
Yes.
we have your paper now. Yep. So
Yeah,
stay on
okay.
it.
Here we-
Oh,
Okay. Yep. So this is my paper. Now, overall, I teach philosophy, and the big picture is that we need a paradigm shift. And this has been, people have been saying this at least for 50 years when I was in college. And we need to switch from the modern paradigm of reason and the relation between reason and faith to a systems view that's holistic. That's what we have to do if we're going to have sustainability. Can I just go from one slide to the next, or can somebody let me? Okay. So, all right. Let's see. Am I allowed to have access to could the person who's doing it give me access to the,
okay, let me ask the committee again. She would like to have an access for live share. Can you do that for her, please? Yep. Already? Martha, the organizing committee just said to me that she already gave you a permission for that live share. Well, anyway,
Okay.
we already have it live actually. Yep. Yep, that's
This is
correct.
it, right?
Yeah, stay in there. Yeah. Don't go
Okay.
away from there. You just click for next, next,
Okay.
next, then we can have the paper with
Yes.
us. Thank you, Martha.
Good.
Okay.
I apologize. I really have it on all sorts of places, but okay.
No worries. Should be all
So
right.
this
Thank
is,
you.
transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary approach. All right. So, second one, connecting Panchasila. Now, I want to say that I do not know a lot about Panchasila. When I first read it, I thought, wow, that's Aristotle, or that's consistent. So basically, I want to learn from Indonesians about Panchasila, and I want to connect it so we can have conversation. I don't want to profess things. I don't want to tell you things. I just want to open up the possibility. That's my main issue here. That I begin with just a summary, and again, maybe someone would be offended by my summary. That's fine. I can talk to them some other time. The point is to connect it with all sorts of stuff going on today. Systems thinking, process philosophy, neuroscience, happiness studies, the United Nations, the sustainable millennial goals, the Catholic Church, and Aristotle. So that's my position here, is to link it, as far as I know it, with all these other global frameworks. And we've got to, we have to stop arguing between the frameworks and all get on board and try to create a sustainable future. So we want a model that's universalizable and sustainable. So Panchasila begins with the belief in God. All right. So the educational system has to unite a worldview based on some kind of higher power. That human beings don't define reality and they can't impose themselves on it forever. And that cultures are not exclusively socially constructed. There are better and worse ways to live, to run a society, and there's a foundation for that. The second, then there's humanity, governments accountable for cultivating the humanity. This is a natural and universal standard. It's not it's not uniquely socially constructed. There is a foundation. There's a unity amidst plurality, democracy based on deliberation. The word deliberation here is a very, I mean, in English, the way Aristotle is translated, the word is deliberation is used as a major Aristotelian virtue. So again, in Bahasa Indonesian, when it's translated, it's that same word. So that's amazing to me. And then social justice, social contract, where the government owes people basic needs to flourish, and they then have to give back. The US really could use something like this, but it's never going to get there. Anyway, that's the basics. Then there's the systems view of the world. And this is just one example. There's dozens, probably hundreds at this point, of people who are promoting systems thinking. It's in every discipline. There's been a big turnaround in trauma studies and psychology and all sorts of stuff from a modern reductionist or dualistic view to a contemporary systems view. And it's not anti-religion. So this view claim you can take what's best from the religions and put it together with this particular kind of humanism. Religions wouldn't need to sacrifice their most cherished tenets. There is a way to integrate. There is a significant humanistic and ecumenical component to every religion. And we can engage in a creative elaboration of their fundamental doctrines. And so that's what I'd like to do with Indonesian scholars. Whitehead's process philosophy, he said long ago that the extreme rejection of Aristotle was always wrong based on Einstein and now contemporary people who are into quantum mechanics also say that the basic principles of Aristotle should never have been thrown out. The teleology, mostly, everything is seeking its way of flourishing. Then there's two kinds of reason. Speculative thinks about the highest good, and the short term is just pragmatic. And so a lot of the modern view of reason tends to be either detached, dualistic kind of speculation, or very calculating the means to your own ends without having any common ends that you're calculating toward. The contemporary view rejects the split between facts and values. There's a natural way for humans to flourish, and everything in the world exists and tries to flourish, moves toward greater and greater levels of flourishing. So he rejects the Kant and the reductionist science. And there are a lot of Whiteheadians around too. So, and here's just, I was reading the Jakarta Post when I had my Fulbright, and somebody, wrote about Indonesia's education is holistic. He even compared it to Whitehead. But that's why I think, Indonesia, the foundation, political and cultural, is very consistent with systems thinking. Then there's in neuroscience, like neuroscience is again questioning the modern view and showing empirically that the brain is not a blank slate, it's integrated. So we're not dualistic like Kant, we don't have pure reason, but we integrate our biological need to flourish with the creation of culture. So literally, we create ideas, ideas cause ideas, and we develop neural maps in our minds, biological neural maps that arise because we start thinking about and acting on the basis of conventions and rules, institutions, organizations, and even global. So we can we can create that in our brains and in our world. We have to just choose to do it, however. The goal of life is a life of the spirit. And so here's a neuroscientist saying there's empirical evidence for what he calls a life of the spirit. This is just when you're functioning, when you're flourishing. And he even says that institutionalized religions are designed to create this kind of spiritual experience. Neuroscience is also connected to a science-based scholarship focused on happiness studies. All right, the United Nations has, it tries to integrate. It includes the right to freedom of religion and education. The capabilities model created by Amartya Sen includes the capability to formulate an idea of the good life and have opportunities to act on it. Martha Nussbaum points out that in some cases, the capability for an idea of the good can conflict with other capabilities. As it, you know, if religion is used to cripple women, make them, tell them they can't get an education or something like that. But the United Nations Millennium Sustainability Goals also include the right to a high quality of education. So in the sustainability goals, what it says is systems thinking, anticipatory, normative, strategic. If you go read their goals on education, well, Matt Ferkany wrote in an essay in an Oxford Press group of essays about the virtues of sustainability that combines the notion of virtue with sustainability and takes scholars from many different disciplines. But the one in philosophy is Ferkany, and he says that the goals are too abstract. So a better way to teach children so that they change their way of life would be to teach Aristotle's virtues. That's what his claim is, and I agree with that. In a way that they can apply to the way that they're already living and then adjust how they're living. When I first read Panchasila, I knew it was compatible with Aristotle's virtues. So it all fits with the holistic. Aristotle definitely needs to be expanded and adapted because Aristotle was also used as a real bludgeon for colonialism, because the claim was that only, you know, Western white guys had phronesis, had the higher order capacities, and that justified all the oppression. So I do think it's a good model. It just definitely has to be recognized for the way it's been abused and then used in the way that works. And that's true of any religious tradition. So any set of principles can be abused. Jeffrey Sachs, if you want to go on YouTube, there are many, many interviews with Jeffrey Sachs. He is linked to so many organizations. He's a trained economist, and he works on the boards of the Science and Ethics for Happiness Project. That's a science only. And also the UN Millennial Development Sustainability Goals, the Catholic Church. And what he says is that his foundation is Aristotle. The best books ever written about ethics and politics are Aristotle's Ethics and Politics. And his goal in all of his deliberations is to maximize human flourishing. He takes that model from Aristotle. Okay, since 1983, I've been teaching Aristotle's virtues and vices in a way that leads to sustainability. And the two principles of his worldview is that the purpose of life is to understand the universe and our place in it. That's our number one purpose, not to manipulate it and use it for our own ends. And that was explicitly the modern Western paradigm, was that God gave us the earth to exploit for our well-being. And that is not Aristotle, right? The goal is to understand it, and we can understand it because it's ordered in a certain way. And our destiny, our telos, is to understand that order and live integrated within it. Don't overstep the bounds. The greatest threat is greed, the desire for more than your share. This always leads to the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, and social instability, and then the rise of an authoritarian leader who claims that they're going to create order, but who will eliminate free speech, free scientific inquiry, artistic expression, and citizen engagement in public life. It's, a no-brainer. It'll happen every time. It's kind of, when I read Aristotle, I thought, how did he know? 2,500 years ago, not this again. So it just keeps repeating and repeating, but you still have to work on it. You have to be on the right side of history. So I teach what is normally called world religions as a world philosophy class, because it was the Western colonialists that labeled Buddhism, humanism, and other traditions religions, and focused on the doctrine, and we're different from them and we're better than them. And actually those were ways of life, an ergon. So Aristotle's virtues are a way of life. They're not a bunch of words on a page. And he says that too. He says most people would rather talk about virtue than actually be virtuous. And it's like, oh, really? Sounds like me. But anyway, so I get that. But in the West, part of colonialism was to label these things. Where I lost it. Oh yeah, this one. Religions, and then denigrate them and promote Christianity as the best, because that claimed that God wants us to exploit natural resources, and we just happen to have all the industry and the tools and the products, technology to be able to do that. So I guess we get to exploit Indonesian resources in the name of God. Okay. Aristotle, okay, virtue is not a set of definitions. It's a way of life. Okay. In order to have an effect on students' lives. So when I teach it, I don't teach it just, memorizing a bunch of definitions and taking a test on what Aristotle said. I always make the students apply it to their lives and to people they know. And it's really a no-brainer. It's easy. I also connect these virtues to the way of life of Socrates, Jesus, Muhammad, Confucius, Gandhi, and Buddha, and other people, to show the pattern. Like there's certain types of situations that we all get into simply because we're human beings. Then there's differences in what cultures think is normal, but still you can evaluate a culture as abnormal, even if it's socially acceptable. It's self-destructive. Incidentally, the USA, but just because it's socially acceptable doesn't mean it's best. There is a natural foundation. So I call this worldview spiritual humanism, because the Greek notion of spiritual is living for the sake of something greater than yourself. So we are actually wired to do that, because we're capable of seeing patterns. We are fulfilling our nature when we're articulating those patterns, and we're recognizing how there's patterns and better ways to live and worse ways to live. There's patterns in how some behaviors lead to pain and others lead to greater well-being. So we're designed to be able to do that. So the stories of Greek myth are when you take a certain sacred passion, but you get obsessed with it and you do damage to other people, because human beings have to compromise. So we naturally seek justice, truth, beauty. We desire to preserve the wilderness.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
If you can wrap up your presentation, please.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so that was 20 minutes, I think. I think she said it was 30 minutes, but I think it's been 20 anyway. All right, so I listed the virtues. The two most basic are self-control and courage. Well, this is self-control and how it applies today. This one would be courage, the virtue related to fear and how it is that we all fear a number of things. Generosity, how it's important for us to give extra money or extra time to recognize our interdependence. Magnanimity is the giving of the wealthy, and the billionaires of the world are giving money in ways that are pretty much governing everything that happens right now. Even temperedness, ambition, honor. So I can give this PowerPoint over to people if they want to read it, but I think the way I explain it, you'll see that students can instantly apply it to their lives. Your friendships, all types of friendships, high-mindedness, self-knowledge. Well, then the political ones are the ones that correspond to Panchasila. So we're all political creatures. Panchasilas 2, 3, and 4 are very compatible with Aristotle. Greed, let's see, all right. The distribution of wealth and the rectification of wrongs, applying laws in a particular case. The people running the system need to have the other virtues. Citizens have to have goodwill and trust. Then the intellectual virtues are the ones you usually learn at school, like math, science, rhetoric, and they can be tied to virtue or vice. When a society is oriented toward money or power, all the intellectual virtues will be trained to achieve those goals. So that the intellectual virtues themselves can be linked to any goals, good or evil. That's why it's important to integrate them. The person with practical wisdom integrates them. The art of deliberation is when you're making a decision in a particular case and you're using all the moral and intellectual virtues and you're gathering the experts and you're coming to a conclusion. So that's, and then you deliver a speech and convince the people to follow. Okay, this is actually realistic. It's not idealistic. It's idealistic to think you can tell people to be greedy and end up with social stability. That's idealistic. Okay, it's not idealistic to seek wisdom and seek justice, and there's plenty of obstacles and mistakes, but you have to keep trying. Okay, so that's what I tried to show, that Indonesia's Pancasila is compatible with so much of what's going on today in the formation of a global culture, and then how students could learn this. As children, they can find examples, they can come up with their own examples, and then in high school they have to learn to think critically about how Pancasila has been abused or it's been applied in different ways, and just these basic patterns of how ideas get abused. And Greek tragedy is full of people with good intentions and they go bad. So I'm plan to collaborate with Indonesian scholars. I've been given the authority to publish 2 different books of journal articles by humanistic international organizations. And I'm planning to work with Indonesian scholars. Each one will be different about how to link all these things together. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much, Martha. I'm sorry to rush you up. Time is quite limited. Well, thanks very much for the presentation. It's pretty good ones. And as we know that we are human beings, we are not like angel who always act as a virtue, but at the same time, we are not evil that always act a dice or wrong thing. We are human being in combination of virtue and dice. That's I like when you pick up the word a temper. we have such a good temper in way that we can restrain and restrict our wrong deeds and transform it into our good deed. And thanks very much for your critical thinking to your own Western culture when you have a comment on world religions in way that Christianity at the time regards other believers are not religious enough. They are a tradition religion, they are not contextual religions, but in way that they use that to capitalize their act of colonialism, depleting all natural resources as a goodwill. So thanks for that critical. While you are from West country, you are still critical to your own culture. Congratulations for that. Well, next, we would like to invite some questions. I think, can you just show it to us? Can you raise your hand so I can notify who's going to ask questions? Martha? Can you, yeah, thanks
Yeah.
very much. You just close it up so we can have your face with us. I would like to invite audience, if you could just raise your hand so I can notice who's actually gonna ask question. Please click on the emoji. If you click on more, right at the bottom of your Zoom windows, you're gonna see reactions, and then please click on raising a hand so I can call who's asking questions. Well, before I call anyone to raise the hand, there is already questions by chatting. As from Chahyoko, and he would like to ask you, Martha, what is a basic need for the future for face about? Well, I don't think I can understand the question. What actually the question is? You translate that into English? You may just show up in Indonesia. Yep. There is another question. I would like to read it for you, Martha. Dear Professor Martha, thanks for your coming. Based on your paper, Connecting Pancasila, blah, 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 is there any potential for the Indonesian curriculum to become a model for international curricula, such as International Baccalaureate Curriculum of the Cambridge Curriculum? A question from the audience asking you, based on your experience in Indonesia, you've been immersed into Indonesian culture for a long time, for more than a decade for sure. What do you think of Indonesian curriculum? Do you think the combination of science and religion in Indonesian curriculum can be a model for international curriculum?
I
Would you like
don't
to
actually know I don't know the curriculum per se. I only know the philosophy. So I can't answer it, but I did talk at the School of Terabaya and Education a couple months ago. And I know that they had some Germans who came to accredit their program, and the Germans were very impressed. And they said, I wish we had that in Germany. And I think he meant we had it for our Muslim students. He sent me a series of essays and an essay that he had written. And the big project in Germany is how to teach the young people, the Muslims in Europe, about Islam in a way that is tolerant but not extreme. And so he was very impressed with what they're doing in Indonesia. I do think, apart from just me, there's a whole lot of momentum at this moment for noticing what Indonesia has. Because the trouble is, unless you study what's going on actually in the culture, if you just read the news, you're just going to read about this recent law, and you're going to think, oh, you see, religion polarizes people and it's anti-science. It's just not at all the background. It's not consistent with Pancasila. And so Indonesia needs to step up, and say, look, we've got something to offer. We don't have everything, but we definitely have a model for educating Muslims to be committed to democracy and toleration. And our scholars write about the history and the Quran and all the things that show that Islam as a religion has always been tolerant. The thing that I would say is all the wisdom traditions were that way. They were much more synthetic and holistic and diverse and tolerant. It's the modern world that has reduced religion to a bunch of facts and ideologies. It's made it into anti-science. It wasn't anti-science before. It's a totally modern construction of what the notion of wisdom was.
Well,
Is
Martha,
that
yeah, I get your point, but I would like to refocus that questions. The problem with us right now is that the development of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, those are actually the indicators for human capital. Why not including religion? Why not including a moral virtue as that indicator for human capital? What do you
well,
think
here's
of
the
it?
problem.
Yep,
I mean, it's really a problem. Okay, so I also
exactly.
taught in Bangladesh at the Asia University for Women. And those women came from 18 different countries. And when I was teaching them humanities, I was teaching them Greek culture. They said, why don't we have more classes like this? Like, I'm really learning about how to live. And all we get is this STEM stuff. And, all the developing countries are just thinking they can't develop unless they take every smart kid they have and pour STEM into them. And the kids themselves are really annoyed because they feel like they're getting used. Their brains are getting used to make money to increase the overall wealth. And it's really scary. Then the other thing is that the scholars can't, I looked up Scopus. So in order to get promoted, you have to have Scopus. Well, Scopus is totally modern, it's got
Yeah.
this science and modern science, and it's got science detached from nature. It's not wisdom or an old humanist model. Luckily, I've worked with these two organizations. One of the book of journal articles, that organization is Scopus, approved. And then the other one hasn't even tried yet, but they come out of the Catholic University of America. And so I think if they try, they'll probably get the Scopus. But I understand this, and I just think it's horrible. And I think it's another wave of colonialism.
Yep.
Because they're trying to make you fit your brain into this box of, modern, postmodern, blah, blah. And it's just, we're destroying the earth. Like, why would we be a model? Why do you have to stuff yourselves into that framework? But the other thing is there are people who were raised in that framework who are giving arguments for why that framework is wrong, right? Like Damasio. So it is emerging. It's just 50 years of going the wrong way. And it's very frustrating. But I'm going to do what I can do, which is limited, but
I
at
know.
least I can do something.
Well, the same with us here in Indonesia, actually. Well, let's say that somebody just finished public school. They would like to go to university. They are assessed in math. They are assessed in science, but not as assessment in moral values. That's really ridiculous to us while we are teaching, behaving such high moral standards, but at the same time requirement administratively to go to universities, ignoring that fact that moral value is of significant thing. Well, we would like to ask somebody else in the audience, probably from faculty member or students here, Please raise your hands to ask questions. Martha still with us? Yep, we still have 10 minutes. No worry. Can I have the audience, please, from the faculty members, probably to ask such questions to Martha, while she is along with us right now?
I know that just waiting for someone to ask, I'll say that I gave some keynote speeches.
Okay.
And the people from Australia, we're all very aware of this problem. So I think that it's going to be a growing movement, and Indonesians can step up. Okay.
We are in Dilma, actually, Martha. We are following what the US already been progressing in terms of democracy, but the democracy is one man, one vote. It's procedural. While at the same time, the principle of Pancasila is deliberation, as you said to us already. Well, the deliberation will not be as what we want, actually, if we don't have enough votes. The deliberation is such, the deliberation is such of high value, moral standard. But at the same time, if we are losing votes, who can hear us? No one gonna hear us with the deliberation. This is what I said in the beginning before I have a comment on you. We are human beings. We are in balance of virtue and vice, as Aristotle's principle already been explored by you. This is actually the problem right now. Are we going for procedural democracy, or we are going for substantial democracy? Well, we are heading for substantial democracy, and we are like a procedural, no one gonna hear us because we don't get enough votes. Well, that's who we are actually. All right, we have somebody who already raised their hands. Alif Ramadan. Okay, please, directly to Martha, what your question is. Yeah, can you unmute his mic, please? Ali Ramadan already raised the hands. Yep, it's ready, Alif.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Mr. And hello, Professor Mark. My name is Arif Ramadan from University Muhammadiyah Professor Dr. Hamka in Jakarta. Regarding my question about the education and religious and science as part of one integral, what the Kunto Wijoyo said, is a structural transcendent. One thing for sure, in this education world, there is a thin line between when we use religious as the basis of education and when we use another method, not religion, as in education. So we have Islam, Western epistemology, who deny wahyu, deny the first as one object knowledge, and the other hand, Islam want this knowledge become one of the things put the education system in the education system. So, in my question is, does the education is do we really need to inviting that this, or do we just put that aside and make something compromising both epistemology, so that we can agree each other that, well, yes, maybe Muslim will use wahyu as the epistemology, and maybe the Western epistemology doesn't use wahyu. But in the end, in the goal, we can agree that when we achieve the scientific research, we can say, well, your research is right, even though you use wahyu as your basis, for example. Uh, what do you think, Professor Marta? Do you agree with the idea, or do you have any other idea? So we can compromise this dialectical debate, the semantic debate in between the Islamic discourse and Western discourse, because this is the one of the fighting Syed Naqib Al-Atas, Ismail Raja Al-Faruqi, and other scholar who sees epistemology as unpure, so they want to fight that. But in the other hand, someone who saw this problem, not just, we don't need to purify because knowledge is natural, but we need to redraw the concept of the knowledge, so we
All
can
right,
agree
Alif, we got
between
your
the
questions
Western.
anyway. Martha,
Okay.
do,
Actually,
do I
this
need
is
to
another
rephrase
thing.
it to you, or you can just answer directly?
Well, let me try and then.
All right.
Okay, when you say Western epistemology, you mean modern, right? It wasn't always that way, and that's why the Catholic Church is consistent with, well, Jeff Sachs works with the Catholic Church, the UN, because the church had that wisdom view, not modern epistemology. So, but again, you get brainwashed when you go to college and they tell you, oh, this is modern science and this is Western and this is better and you better conform, And then the neuroscientists in the West come along and say, no, it's not. And so these two Western views are beating up on each other. In the meantime, the developing countries are trying to play catch up. And so they mold themselves to fit the modern. And then these other guys say, oh, well, we've done that. Neuroscience. I mean, it's just totally bizarre. And I mean, I've been a PhD student and I'm constantly trying to jump through the hoops and do whatever you want me to do so I can get this degree, And I just think you have to start right there where you say Western epistemology. I would say, no, the modern view, which is unlimited exploitation of natural resources. This is an epistemology that has to die, right? We've got to stop. And there's even plenty of Westerners that are trying to kill it, but it just keeps coming back. It's like faith. It is just as blind to faith as any other extremist religion. People just won't give up. Facts, no. And exploiting nature and all that, no. There have always been voices of people saying no, but that Enlightenment view just keeps rolling down the hill. Do you understand that?
Yep.
Okay. Very annoying.
Thanks, Martha. Well, that's always in conflict, actually, in the epistemology of the West and the East, but I don't think it's in a clash, as Huntington already said it. It's in conflict, it's conflicting, but it's not in a clash of epistemology.
Well, the Westerners disagree. The Westerners are in a clash with each other.
Exactly. Well, when I met you, you reminds me of Donald Trump's winning the election, and you said that's actually this discrepancy within a Western culture when we are talking about the morality. Well, anyway, Martha, we can have a talk later on, but time is quite limited within this Zoom meeting. Thanks very much for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your integration of local Indonesian culture and knowledge, and you frame it in such a way that you deliver Aristotle's virtues. And thanks again. Hopefully that we can have more talk later on. But from now on, I think we got to finish having you with us. So please applause now to Martha from Leon College, Arkansas University.
Well, I thank the Indonesians for educating me about a lot of things.
Thanks
moderate Islam. It's
thanks very much.
Interesting. And I love
Yep. Before I let you go, you may have your final statement for us, please. Do you have
All
your
right.
final remark to us? Yep.
let's see, I guess at an Islamic State university, it would be to make clear the difference between the humanistic branch of Islam and the more extremist branch, right? And when you look at the humanistic branch, link it to other religions, but that if you're in Pancasila, if you're Indonesian, you have to do that to be a good citizen. And then my job is to link it to Aristotle and democracy. That's all.
Yep. Thanks very much, Martha. I let you go now. Thank you again. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to invite. Oh, sorry, wrong paper. Jenny. Jenny is professor at Victoria University of Wellington. I just want to make sure if Jenny, you are really with us.
Yes, I am.
Oh, thanks very much, Jenny. I'm going to be your moderator for this morning discussions. Well, it's already evening in there, right? What time is it now in there?
No, it's afternoon, 3:36 in the
Oh,
afternoon.
3:56. What time is the sunset right now, actually?
It's probably about 8.
All right, so it's still afternoon. Thanks very much. If you bring it back in here, that's already evening, actually, with that time. Well, Jenny, thanks for your paper, and you're going to speak of it. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, a good example. While we are dealing with education for sustainability, we got to act locally for that value, right? Well, we think globally, but we got to act locally. And we would like to learn from Jenny his example of Aotearoa. How do you pronounce that? Aotearoa?
Aotearoa.
Yeah,
Yes,
Aotearoa. She has an experience of how to deal with the local culture in a way that's for sustainable development by means of education. So, Jenny, I do not need to talk too much, so we would like to have you right away. Time is yours right now.
Thank you. I'm just sharing my screen, so I hope this works.
Sure. Yep. We have it right now. Yep.
I'm just wanting it to go to the larger view. Is that the large view for you now?
Yep. That's already good now. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, it's my pleasure and privilege to be here with you today. Good morning, everybody. And as our colleague just said, I'm providing a perspective from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Aotearoa is the Māori name for New Zealand. And I'm really interested to contribute to such a conference because I think it's laudable. It's really useful to be learning from cross-disciplinary discussions and to talk about the integration and interconnection of religion, science, and education. And I think that it's also important that we have a lens on education for sustainability at this complex time when we do have so many global challenges. And I'd like to also acknowledge Professor Sumani, the Dean of the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Education of the Sunan Kalijaga State Islamic University of Yogyakarta, and also Dr. Istiningsih, who both have kindly invited me to be here today. And I just wanted to highlight how we have been, Dr. Isti and I have been involved in a project which is focused on competencies for teacher education in the Asia Pacific region. And I think these opportunities for networking amongst globally related, geographically related countries are very important. And you can see in the picture there, Professor Charles Hopkins is in the middle. And I also wanted to honor Professor Hopkins for his amazing long-term leadership in this area. I'll come back to him later. So my perspective comes from over 30 years as an education scholar in Aotearoa, and my teaching and research have all been very much concerned with social, cultural, and educational and ecological justice. And I just want to really recognize how the domains of religion, science, and education do intersect and all do contain important meanings and guidance for us in understanding our purposes in life. And all three domains also assist us to a deeper sense of connectedness within our world. And I was just imagining when you're perhaps seeing a beautiful sunset or standing in a beautiful forest, how all those domains, religion, science, and education, all come to bear on how we interpret the meanings that surround us in any context. But I was imagining a context standing in awe of the beauty of nature and how they all three can offer us solutions to the challenges that we face. So I'm just going to talk briefly about some of these challenges, the global challenges that we as educators need to be aware of and to support the students with whom we work to actually respond to these challenges. And then later on in the presentation, I'm going to give some examples from my research in my own country. And they also draw on aspects such as critical thinking and indigenous knowledges, which in my context are considered highly important. So some of these global challenges, you're no doubt aware of the fact that we've had 3 years now of a horrible pandemic, which has exacerbated inequality and poverty that was pre-existing. And now we also have a further acceleration of these issues caused by the war in Ukraine. And we have these problems between richer and poorer countries, as poorer countries are facing debt crises. And even in richer countries, the purchasing power of people's wages is being depressed, yet the corporate profits soar and billionaire wealth is reaching unprecedented levels. And these billionaires, as Professor Martha mentioned, seem to be almost callous in their disregard for how they could be better using their wealth in service of humanity and the planet. And of course, we have a climate crisis, which is not going to go away in any short period of time, and a biodiversity crisis, which today's news this morning, I read on this Guardian article here, that there has just been an agreement with almost all the countries in the world to conserve 30% of our planet's biodiversity by the end of the decade. So that's very, very exciting. And I'll just mention that I will put the slides up into the chat shortly so that you can view the links that I've included in my PowerPoint after I finish speaking. So the interesting thing, I mentioned that these crises are interrelated. So biological diversity or biodiversity in the shorter term, it's the variety of all life on Earth, including life that we can't see, genes and bacteria and entire ecosystems and forests and coral reefs, and it forms the web of life that humans depend on for so many things, for our food, our water, our medicine, having a stable climate, economic growth, and many other things. And more than 1 billion people rely on forests for their livelihoods, and the land and the ocean are currently being impacted because they are absorbing the carbon emissions that humans are generating. So nature is in crisis, and up to 1 million species are now threatened with extinction. And for many, it's very soon, very likely that they will become extinct quite soon. And for example, irreplaceable ecosystems like the Amazon rainforest, which have been up till now serving as carbon sinks, are actually becoming carbon sources as they are deforested, which is exactly the wrong thing to be happening. And 85% of wetlands, such as salt marshes and mangrove swamps, they're also great carbon sinks, but we are clearing them, humans are clearing them and as we develop our towns and farming. So climate change is quite seriously impacting biodiversity. You can see from this graphic here from the United Nations that 4% of mammals will lose half their habitat if we raise our temperature 1.5 degrees, 8% at 2 degrees, but 41% of mammals will lose half their habitat due to raising the temperature to by 3 degrees. And the main driver of this biodiversity loss is humans' use of land, and primarily for our food production. And we've already altered over 70% of all ice-free land. So the 30% goal that was set at the COP15 today is actually right on the edge of where we're at right now. And of course, as land is converted for agriculture, animals lose their habitats and face extinction. So climate change is playing an increasingly important role in the decline of biodiversity, and the risk of species extinction increases with every degree of warming. So the evidence is very clear. The latest United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has said the time for action is now. Education has a vital role to play, and it's not too late if we all take action now. So there is still hope. And I think that idea that there is still hope is really important in education as young people come to face what they're learning about in terms of biodiversity loss, climate change, to know that it is still not too late. However, we need to act urgently. So education for sustainable development is the United Nations response and approach in this context of crises. And in order to contain global warming before it reaches catastrophic levels, we need to educate people to address the environmental, social, and economic issues in a holistic way. And the UNESCO's ESD for 2030 education program aims to work at both the personal and societal levels of transformation in order to change course. And the objectives of ESD, again, also are holistic in that they empower learners of all ages to make informed decisions and take individual and collective action to change society and care for the planet. And they recognize that in order to generate transformation in service of people and the planet, ESD needs to be actioned across the intersecting and interrelated pillars of social, cultural, ecological, and economic sustainability. So we find this notion of the interconnected and interrelatedness very evident. Critical thinking is a key ESD competency. And these are the kind of elements that have been identified in a recent article talking about truth-seeking, open-mindedness, the capacity to be able to analyze, systemicity, to be able to be systematic and organized in one's thinking and approaching complex problems, self-efficacy, to trust your own efficiency and your own reasoning and being competent, seeing yourself as a competent and capable thinker, inquisitiveness, curiosity, eagerness to explore new knowledge, and criticality, and awareness that multiple solutions can coexist, and being open to revising one's views. So one of the really interesting things with the latest IPCC report is that it has recognized the value of Indigenous knowledge in terms of helping us map sustainability pathways. And it's a really exciting recognition because Indigenous peoples have a huge responsibility around the world as guardians of large expanses of forests and otherwise undamaged lands and biodiversity. So to have their Indigenous people's knowledges and roles as guardians of the planet is a very important recognition. And I'm so pleased that the IPCC is now recognizing that we can all learn from Indigenous knowledges, because that's been something I've been researching. So this is a slide that shows my islands, our islands of Aotearoa. We have the two main islands. The top island was known to Māori as Te Ika a Maui. So Maui was the mythological adventurer who fished up the fish. So you can see the North Island. At the top is the tail of the fish, and where I live down here at the bottom of the fish is the eye of the fish. So I live in the head of the fish. And this larger island down below is known to Māori as Te Waka o Maui, which was the boat from which Maui fished up this giant fish. And to non-Māori, these two islands are simply known as North Island and South Island, slightly less imaginative. And you can see from all these tribal regions that the whole of New Zealand, the whole of Aotearoa, was taken up historically and still today by different Māori tribes and sub-tribes. So on the left there, you can see that our total population is now over 5 million. 70% are Pākehā, which is our word for people who have European ancestry. 16.5% are Māori. 15% are of different Asian ethnicities. 8% from Pacific Islands, South Pacific Islands. We have a lot of Pacific Islands people living, particularly in our city of Auckland, and 1.5 are from other places. So we're a very diverse nation, and yet we have particular responsibilities and obligations to Māori. So these stem from an 1840 treaty which assured Māori that when Britain would colonise them, they would have their rights upheld, and there were several rights that were specified. One was the protection of their own rangatiratanga, their chieftainship, their authority and control over their lands, dwellings, and everything that they valued. Under Article 3 of this treaty, Māori were to be equal citizens with the British, and Article 4 gave equal status for Māori spiritual beliefs. However, once Britain gained this assurance that from Māori that they could come to New Zealand and be legitimately present here, they ignored all those undertakings to Māori, and Māori actually suffered huge losses of lands. They now retain only 5.6% of their lands. The Māori language is endangered, and only 4% of New Zealand citizens say they are fluent speakers of Māori. And of course, with the loss of languages goes a lot of the knowledges that were encapsulated in the languages. So we also have a very severe biodiversity crisis, partly because of the conversion of most of our forests and wetlands to farming, which is our big economic, we're very dependent on farming and tourism. So sadly, this quote says, nowhere is the loss of biodiversity more pronounced than here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We have the highest proportion of threatened indigenous species in the world. And you can see that on the right, there's so many of our different species are at least mildly endangered, but most of them are severely endangered. So now I'm going to talk about 3 examples from 3 different projects that I have been one of the researchers. All of our studies involved a commitment to the treaty that I just mentioned, recognising the rights of Māori, and the Māori spiritual beliefs are central to a Māori worldview. They all have a commitment to cultural sustainability as per the pillars of ESD. They all involved participation and support of teachers, children and families. And we used in all of our studies qualitative narrative methodologies. So the first study took place in 10 early childhood settings from around the country. And we, with the teachers who were co-researchers, really more than participants, we explored ways in which they were implementing teaching practices, pedagogies that fostered caring for ourselves, others, and the environment. And we also asked the teachers to explore integrating Māori understandings about caring for ourselves, others, and the environment. And the integration of Māori understandings and Māori language is actually required in our early childhood curriculum Te Whāriki. So this wasn't a huge expectation, really, of teachers because they should have been doing this. And yet the majority of Pākehā, that's the teachers who are not Māori, who have European ancestry, very few of them speak Māori and very few of them have a strong understanding of Māori views. So it was a challenge for the teachers, but they really enjoyed the challenge. So one of the findings that we had in the study was seeing kaitiakitanga in action. So kaitiakitanga is a Māori concept, and it describes the obligation that people have to be stewards of the environment, actively caring and protecting ecosystems and the biodiversity within them. So this is an explanation from one of the teachers, how about how kaitiakitanga operated in her kindergarten. She said, kaitiakitanga is looking after places, things, and people. We have observed our children gain a sense of pride and respect for our kindergarten environment. We believe that when children have the opportunity to engage and care for the natural environment, they will gain the skills, knowledge, and desire to care for it in the future. The environment is the third teacher. There is a learning opportunity in every space. We have gardens that are sensory, edible, native, and flowering. We have composting and recycling systems, including water conservation and ecosystems. Children are sharing responsibility to look after our place, and this is valued as real work. So everything we do in the kindergarten here is included with the children. And there was evidence in the study of teachers integrating Māori spiritual beliefs and Western science. So not seeing these as in conflict, but seeing these as supporting one another. So in addition to the practical steps mentioned on the other slides, such as recycling and reducing rubbish and composting food scraps, children were involved with gardening on a regular basis at most of the centres. And some also had outings, regular outings to clean up the local parks. And in this image, Adele Elwood is talking about both Māori and Māori spiritual constructs about kaitiakitanga and caring for trees, as well as the science pertaining to photosynthesis as they plant a fruit tree at the kindergarten. So there's some links here if you wanted to read more about this study. It was over 10 years ago now. And on the right, you can see that this particular journal, the issue of this journal had several articles from the project, including one by Adele, the teacher that we just saw on the previous slide. So if you wanted to read more, those links are available for you. So the next study was a bit more recent, and it was funded by the New Zealand National Commission for UNESCO. And it was part of a wider study led by Professor Charles Hopkins, who I mentioned earlier. Professor Hopkins is the UNESCO Chair for Reorienting Teacher Education to Sustainability. And Professor Hopkins initiated this international network, the @Indigenous ESD, and this project, which was focused on reorienting education and training systems to improve the education outcomes of Indigenous youth. So I didn't put the link, but I'll add the link. This is available online. The report from this study is also published in that particular journal, the International Journal of Informal Science and Environmental Learning. So in this particular study, we worked with several different schools, and two of them were in Enviro Schools kindergarten and a neighbouring Enviro school. Now, Enviro schools are a New Zealand model of working in environmentally conscious ways. They're not, Enviro schools are not a formal part of the education system. They are an independent program, but many schools and kindergartens have become involved in Enviro schools because they value what it has to offer. So Papararangi Kindergarten was the kindergarten that was involved in this particular project, and they created this the structure which represented Te Tiriti o Waitangi based practice. So they had on one side, on the left there, their commitment to the treaty, which was about the Māori rights I mentioned earlier, and on the right-hand side, their commitment to the environment, and underneath the community of learners. And then they had 4 Māori values sort of woven across their structure. Whanaungatanga is relationships and looking after families. Manaakitanga is caring, and it's an obligation to be generous and hospitable. Kotahitanga is collectivism, acting as a community. Kaitiakitanga, which I've already explained, and rangatiratanga, which is self-determination for Māori, and also for children to be in charge of their own learning. So this is one of the teachers explaining their philosophy. She said, "We promote and encourage Article 2 of Te Tiriti o Waitangi through the concept of kaitiakitanga in relation to whenua, which is land, tangata whenua, which is actually Māori people, and taonga, treasures. Kaitiakitanga can be expressed as the mutual nurturing and protection of people and their natural world. We see part of our role as promoting and sharing our knowledge about Te Ao Māori, the Māori worldview, concepts including kaitiakitanga with tamariki children, whānau families, and the community, preserving and valuing the land and all that is Māori. One of the other ways we are kaitiaki, kaitiaki is caretakers, for taonga katoa, everything valued by Māori is sharing and making real many paki waitara, which are Māori historical stories and mythological stories such as Maui fishing up the North Island that I mentioned earlier. So you can see in this little example, it's one of the children from the kindergarten who became so concerned that our national bird is the kiwi and that it was endangered that she decided to fundraise and had a little project where she raised money to help fund the projects that are trying to save our native birds. So I think that is an amazing example of a very young child who became concerned from what she'd learned in kindergarten that she wanted to raise money to care for the kiwi.
Jenny?
In the next door school, they also had Māori values overarching their philosophy. You can see them along the top. They're similar values to the values in the kindergarten, next door kindergarten. And they unpacked them and explained, like the kindergarten teachers, what they actually mean in practice. And
sorry to interrupt you, Jenny.
Yes. Yes. Shall I carry on? Do you want me to continue or what? I'm sorry, I can't hear anything. I'll have a look in the chat. Can you, if you, do you want me to carry on, or I don't understand what's happening? Can you hear me? Oh, I should carry on. Okay. Can you all hear me okay? Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna go through. So sorry about that. I wasn't sure what was happening. So this is an explanation from the school which won the top EnviroSchool award. This is Paparangi School. This is them talking about what they had been working on to gain this award. We have a living, evolving school vision. Progress is celebrated and new ideas added. Environmental sustainability is part of all our decisions and everything we do. We have a strong sense of connection to the environment and know we can affect change for a sustainable world. The inquiry and action leadership involved children taking the lead. They were often initiating things but supported by their teachers. And some of the teachers had specialized focuses. So some were focused on environmental education or Te Reo Māori, the Māori language, or place-based pedagogy, or global citizenship education. Teachers had their own expertise, which they brought into the mix. And they also had the support of EnviroSchool's facilitators. And in the school, there was an EnviroSchool lead teacher who got extra support from the EnviroSchool organisation, and there was also support from families. And so ESD enactment was a pedagogical process, not a sort of subject that was taught, but something that was infused throughout the entire curriculum, and it was visible in shared responsibility and intergenerational equity, with grandparents being involved in some supporting some of the projects, critical thinking, systems and holistic thinking, integration of knowledge domains, both Māori and Western, and place-based learning locally grounded in their communities and in care of their local environments. And some of the dispositional outcomes we saw in the children included the skills of critical thinking, collaborative problem solving, leadership, confidence, and an embedded concern for others, including the environment. So the last and most recent study focused on well-being and climate education. And we were tasked with producing this document you can see on the right here, which was a well-being guide to sit alongside a climate education program for schools. And so we wanted to know what the children and young people thought would be important for a well-being guide to support children as they learn about climate education, as they learn about the climate change and what they needed to do about climate education. So we asked them, and they were very, very interesting to talk with. We had groups of Māori and Pacific Islands and some high school climate activist children, and we asked them what was important for a wellbeing guide. And they said that they really thought it was important, firstly, that they did get climate education, and it was very uneven in their experience. And sometimes they got it, but only if they asked to have it. And actually it wasn't a core part of their learning. But they said that it was important when they did receive climate education, that there be a focus on well-being, and that their anxieties and concerns about climate change should be acknowledged as valid and as actually quite reasonable responses to the climate crisis. These young people also strongly recognised that it was important to include Māori values and knowledges in their climate education and schooling more widely. And they wanted their education to provide them with skills and support to be change makers in service of the planet and the well-being of the planet. This is a quote: "It's difficult for us as young people to create change. And we are the generation that is going to have to create that change because we're not seeing it right now from our leaders. It's difficult for us to create change when we don't have the resources and the tools, and we're not empowered to take action." So they were quite critical when we asked them what was important for well-being, that they were critical of very superficial, individualistic approaches where you teachers would ask them to point to which smiley face or sad face or whatever they were feeling that day. They said self-care for climate isn't like self-care for if you're dealing with anxiety or depression or any other mental health related issue, because it's not an individual issue, it's a collective issue. It's an issue that is about our connection with our environment, our connection with our planet, our connection with other people. And self-care is about connecting back to that environment. It's about connecting back to the people. And it's about building hope, building resilience, and choosing to create hope and to create that kind of collective in the community. It's about connecting with your environment, about connecting with the world around you. So this is my final message. I think that one of the things that it's really reinforced for me, having worked through these various research projects, is that we do need to listen to children and young people. And research has shown that children's sense of hopelessness and disempowerment will be made worse if they don't feel like they're being heard. So teachers and school leaders and education researchers have so much power and responsibility, not only to enable children to become more knowledgeable about the climate and the biodiversity crises, but also to strategically support children's emotional well-being, their cultural locatedness, their political analysis, and their climate action. So despite the good intentions, children and young people continue to struggle to be heard. And I hope that our research has demonstrated why we should be listening to them. Thank you. And I'll put these slides into the chat now.
Yep, Jenny, thanks very much for having that presentations for us. It's really a good thing. We learn from you not only the knowledge, but also the practice of how you integrate Maori into Western culture in New Zealand for sustainable development. For sure, we're gonna Yes, Bu Isri? Jenny, while waiting for Isti's comment on you, I'm just wondering if you can perform a Maori haka. Can you, Jenny?
No, it wouldn't really be appropriate to do that right now.
We'd like to have Maori haka. I kept
Haka is
watching
actually-
a rugby team from New Zealand when they are performing Maori haka, showing the strength of the team.
Yes,
Moderator,
that
thank
is
you
a
very much,
tradition, but I'm
Moderator.
not going to do
Can
it
you,
right now.
can you, Jenny, please? 1
No,
minute,
not
please.
right
No,
now.
you can't.
No, thank you. No.
Hello, Jenny.
Okay,
Hello,
now
Jenny.
as for Isti, he would like to comment. Ask.
Hello, Jenny. Nice hearing your very good presentations. It's very good, wonderful. And nice to see you again. Congratulations, ESD have been implemented in your school, in your country. Congratulations once again. And nowadays, we know that we are in the crisis right now. Yeah, ESD is the answer actually. And I just want to say to you that I and my friend Ernie and the Dean will collaborate with you to do the research for implement ESD, and especially here that Indonesia right now, the newest regulations, the policy here is Pancasila is our way of life. Value of Pancasila right now as the new policy in Indonesia, the value of Pancasila must be in curriculum, especially for school curriculum. I think it is same with what you present just now about Maori value already implemented in your school in Maori, New Zealand. So in this case, I and friends collaborate with you, will realize how to implement Pancasila as the way of life of my country, as the content of in the curriculum, especially at school. Okay, Jenny, so see you 2023, collaborate to do the collaboration research. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye and good luck for you. See you again. Thank you very much. Thank you, moderator.
Okay, before you respond to her question and comment, Jenny, I would like to ask Martha. Martha, you may have a comment on Jenny or pose some questions because it's really related to the wisdom you just delivered it to us, the Aristotle virtue in sustainable development.
actually,
Martha, would like to invite you.
Right. Okay. So Panchasila recently, I think they've integrated some indigenous traditions, right, into Panchasila. They've added some of the indigenous traditions. And I just think that that's an important link. Is consistent. It isn't the way we associate Aristotle, but a major issue, the foundation of Aristotle is the mean between extremes, and greed is the worst vice because it pulls us away from our place in the universe. So, most Greek scholars don't associate Aristotle with sustainability, but they really should, because that was a major issue in Greek culture. There's many aspects of it, but I think he took it for granted that you need to integrate nature and culture. So I think they're consistent, and but you have to move forward, create something new. I like it. There's a lot of movements on indigenous knowledge in our country. I have a colleague in anthropology who does that with Mexico. He lived in a village there, so there's a lot going on.
Okay, thank you, Martha. Back to you, Jenny. You may respond to Isti and Martha's comment.
Yeah, I think I'm excited to learn that Indonesia, Pancasila is incorporating indigenous understandings. That's wonderful to hear. And Isti, I think that's a really excellent possibility to do some future collaboration about this. So we'll stay in touch. And I just wanted to say, indigenous knowledges are not new. They are actually very, very old, and they have sustained through all sorts of crises in the past, and have responded, because humans do have that adaptability and resilience if they are operating in resonance with their environment. And those are some of the things we can learn from indigenous wisdom.
Yep, Jenny. Before we finish your presentation, you may have your final remark to us, but before you have the final remark, I would like to share with you that we got the same trouble in here. It's no longer about problem, but it's already been in trouble. Students are progressing in science. Students are progressing in technology, and they are so ignorant of that value actually, about the sustainable development. And I think you in New Zealand facing the same problem. But how you deal actually with that kind of problem in a way that you turn into opportunity for your research and even implement that sustainable development. If you can share it with us for a while, please. Jenny.
Yeah, there are competing discourses here in New Zealand for sure. And we have an education system that still is very much focused on measuring achievement in compartmentalized areas like English literacy and numeracy, not even the full breadth of mathematics, but the minutiae of what they're obsessing about is completely goes in contrast to the wider, more integrated views of holistic understandings of nature, and what we really need to have is that wider, more holistic view of the world, rather than essentializing it down to measuring particular items of assessment. And I think that's a major challenge that we have here in my country, is that for example, our ministry still doesn't actually include the climate education program that I referred to has been taken down from, it wasn't a formal part of the system, but it was on the ministry's website, but they've now removed it. So hopefully, because we have a new national adaptation plan for climate, which is the first one that we've ever had, and this new national adaptation plan calls for climate education, I hope that our Ministry of Education will actually reinstate that program or something similar and put it to the top of its priorities. But I think it's for us all as educators to be advocating on behalf of the children who need these knowledges for their own future well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks very much. I would like to ask everyone who are with us right now, please applaud Jenny for his wonderful presentation. Thank you, Jenny. We would like some more talk with you later on, but from now on, time is restricting. So we would like to invite our third speaker, Avash Kumar Shah from NITD India. I just would like to ask if Avash, are you with us right now?
Hello.
Avash, can you hear us?
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you. I'm audible.
All right, thanks very much, Avash. I think I do not need to talk so more about you. It's just wonderful presentations for sure. And Avash from India gonna talk about biomass. Sorry. Yep, biomass as fructose in steel making, stepping towards the vision of sustainable development and its climate change in 2030. Avash, time is yours now.
Should I share my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
We like to learn from you, and we know that Indian people are very good in technology.
Thank you. Basically, the conference is all about the science, education, and also the religion. Well, my focus is all about the science and education, where we can bring a lot of changes in today's world. The technology are developing so much higher that today's the more far accomplishment is about steel making, which are required in every country and every part of the world of the country. But now, thing is that before entering the steel making, we have a simple clear idea that steel making is basically having the more effect of carbon. That carbon comes from the fossil fuels. And for the fossil fuels, the most dangerous thing is that today's world, fossil fuels are being endangered species. 200, 300 years more, rather than nothing, fossil fuels are going to be left. This time is the high pickup time to change this world using a strong heft called biomass. Well, scientist Avash Kumar Saha, is only going to show how the presentations of work of biomass, which acts as a fructose in the flavor of steel making, which is actually towards the vision of a sustainable development for coming 2030. Well, the presentation is all about the outline, which I recall as the introduction, why renewable resources, the biomass, an alternative way, a climate change which is a threat to humanity, and finally, I will conclude my remarks. Let's start. That why renewable sources call sustainable development. Before entering renewable sources, let's some short of a brief that actually what is renewable sources is all about. Well, is actually renewable sources is all about the replacement of naturally over time. As a result, it is a kind of energy resources which are renewed by time. and also replenishes on the human timescale. It may be sources of the water, geothermal, sunlight, and wind, and more other technological replacement renewable sources. This is a short, crispy, brief explanation of iron and steel making, where the iron ore and coal are being purged within the sinter plant, where coke oven byproducts and also the pellets are being charged. Well, previous historical studies says that the coal and the iron ore fines, addition with the lime, what and the additions of hydrated lime, can be charged in the blast furnace for steel making. But now, scenario has been changed into a DRI pellets. DRA pellets is also about direct reduced pellets. This is of the pellets as a mixture of iron ore, coal, and hydrated lime, where the level of coke is slightly lower than the actual production for the DRI. Now, this scenario is all about the industrial scale, which we have planned for that. This scale is all about the iron making, the blast furnaces, which have been shown clearly, but the molten slags are being taken out, slag and product out, pulverized or injection is there out, BOS furnace is also there, and recycled scrap is all there about. This process is all about to condense and crispy in the form of a steel making. In this graph, we can see that the ratio in the ratio of the world of the oil, coal, natural gas, hydro, nuclear, renewable, we can see in the coal is the maximum range we are using towards nowadays as a production as using for the fossil fuels, which are basically are to be in energy. In this graph, we can see as per the world India scenario, the world is having the coal ratio of 12,730 million tons of coal, which are production is very higher nowadays. Now the increasing of 1.86 million tons, metric tons of coal per day. But India are still counting number of less more, is still counting about 600 metric tons of coal per day, which are going to very soon in danger. But now, talking about the renewable, talking about the natural, talking about the hydro, it still is very lesser nowadays, talk in respect of coal. This is the major energy resources sectors where are divided, where the 36% are used for the residential services, transport 27%, industry is having 28%, and others 9% of the fossil fuels are being using for the energy. In the industry 28%, we are having a huge of pollution, the huge of chemical pollution, huge of air pollution, which are going to be engulfing day and after day. In case of transport, the petrol, the diesel, and also the other types of the natural, means that the non-renewable resources we're using day by day is also a threat to Indian society, the human society. Now talking about the essential services that are used in 36%. Many sources are being used in these essential sources is about the electric that we are being getting from thermal power plant. That power plant is also run by the fossil fuels. The production of some common metals in the world, as per the ratio, is about the steel, is having the highest 1,491 metric tons of steel, which are going, this is very higher than other things, that's aluminum, copper, zinc, lead, and other steel of alloys. Steel is the most vital production as per the current scenario of the world. And as per the test scenario, 2021, it crosses about 10,000 metric tons per year. Now talking about the energy requirement production, is some common metals. Where we can see the steel for production of steel, we are enduring in the production of steel of 16.5 metric gigajoule per ton. But now, for after the scrapping part, means after the wastage part, which having us from steel, it's not been actually been used. It's usually actually been wasted. For that, we are facing a huge lots of problem to Indian society, to sustainable development society. but we are morely focused on magnesium and aluminum, which is nothing less a waste of thing. But the fossil fuels which are being using day by day are also be the endangered thing for this practice of steel. These are the fossil fuel required for the metallurgical plants. For steel plants, we can see the coke, and the coal power is having 9% of the graph pie chart, where the coal for the blast furnace injection is about 13%, for the boiler coal is 1%, and electrical power 10%. Means the fossil fuel required for the metallurgical plants is only steel production. The coal is taking 69%, in the half the ratio of the coal are being consumed per day. So we can calculate how much it will consume per year. When talking about the aluminum plants, it's about coal power plant is taking 89%, means more than a thing, which are being very dangerous for the world society. It is the graph ratio of the relationship between the energy and the environment. This is the carbon dioxide in ppm level, and also the year-wise thing. We can see increasing of the year, the carbon dioxide rate is also increasing due to the production of the steel making, to the production of the different alloys, which releases means of carbon dioxide, and that affects the huge of our pollution, air pollution, and also threat with the living society. This is the carbon cycle flowchart diagram. We can see the carbon cycle is totally depends on the sun, the condensation and precipitation, which having a deep theory. Also in the marine sector, is also in the soil sector, and also the atmosphere sector, and also in the fossil fuel production. In industry, the fossil fuel, the cement production is consuming is getting 5.5 ratio of the carbon cycle. We are going to be indulged in the atmosphere of having a CO2 emission of 750 rate. After that, the safety rate is going to the atmosphere in the level of troposphere and the stratosphere, which can be consumed into absorb the water level concentration. But the marine land are also been affected because the organic carbon are being dissolved greater than 700 value of ppm level. But the deep ocean level is being affected, and all the sediments, the CO2 percentage are stored as sediments in the grounded level of that. By this, we can say it will also affect the agroforestry, the forest ratio, which are planted the nearby of the rivers. This is the concept of a greenhouse concept, where the sun is directly passing to the light of the earth, where due to the atmospheric layer having a CO2 emission, it directly radiates to longer wavelength radiation to space, and also it radiates within. Due to the problems of a UV radiation layer, with the UV radiation layer literally decreases its layer by showing the emission of a CO2 percentage rate of greater more than that. This is the greenhouse's gases level of a radiative capacity. Where you can see the industrial period, the CO2 emission is 280 ppm, where today current level is having 388 ppm. And also we increase with the increasing rate of 108 ppm, which is more than enough. But now the most dangerous is all about the methane, the CO. Methane is basically the CH4 is having a 700 ppb and a 1745 current level ratio is a more dangerous threat to human society. Talking about the increasing trends of greenhouse gases, we can see the CO2 level is day by day increasing as per the year rate, as per the parts per million. We can see the CO2 as per the current rate of 2010, the emission of CO rate is slightly increasing, or you can say definitely increasing. As per the current ratio, current level 2021, we can have a knowledge, we have a research that CO2 has been rises up to 790 ppm level, where the N2, due to increase of CO2, the nitrogen oxide, the methane, the CFC, the chlorofluorocarbon of 11 and 12% of rate of higher rate of the percentage are being increasing day by day. It's already affect the ozone layer depletion, which affect the human society of the world. Now, these all are aspects are being triggered to impact the global warming. For the global warming, we can have the weather changes. We have the increased freshwater flow, the glacier retreat and the disappearance, and also the sea level rise, the food supply, and also the health issues. They are basically happen day by day. These are the chart. We can see the global warming potential for the 1 kg of steel. Here we can see for the blast furnace iron, which I'm targeting from first slide, it is the industry based. The blast furnace iron, we can see the CO2 equation GP kg per rate for 1 kg steel is more than 1.5, which is means the iron production rate in blast furnace is more enough than other type of castings and other type of, I don't know, sintering plants. That means the increasing of blast furnace production rate, the increase of fossil fuel. The increase of fossil fuel means the increase of CO2 emission, and the increase of CO2 emission means threat to human society. This is the pandemic effect on global economic growth. Well, before entering to this slide, I want to make you understand that we have faces a COVID. The COVID has disrupted all around the world, the economic growth, all around the world, the climate change, and all around the people which are facing the issues of a health issue. The COVID has disrupted the economic and all about the disasters happen. Now, for the current issue, if we focus steel making, steel making is never be stopped. It's going to be production every day and every long. Now, for steel making, we can see huge number of economic growth are required. Huge money, huge productions are required for that. For that, the world is still losing after the pandemic for that. So to decrease these losses, we should implement a new type of technology called green steel. Green steel means a route towards the steel making having a biomass. For the biomass, we take to substitute the fossil fuels. This is the status of a pandemic entered in the global economic. We can see that as per the UNCT experts, as the gross domestic product declares the GDP to fall around about 4.3% in 2020, and also the global recovery is 4.1% in 2021. But in 4 new developing countries, as the USA and other New Zealand and other developing countries, Australia is having to less than minus 5.8% and to minus 2.4% respectively, is having a weaker review in 2021 about plus 3.1% compared to others. For the final global shale final crisis, around 8 countries expected to a negative growth in 2020, having the deeper fall in the output as per the ratio of 9 for the respective ratio of the pandemic effect. Now, why we are calling sustainable development? For this, we should have a judicious amount of raw materials and energy. We should always to generate minimum waste what we always. To achieve the increase the efficiency of production by utilizing a minimum amount of natural resources like coal, petroleum, any other gases. To causes the minimum pollution to the ecosystem by adopting a new manufacturing technology. We should always conserve our raw material energy sources by always reducing the product, always using recycle the product, also rebinding the product of products. We should always use a safer methods of production in iron and steel making and also in the industries. We should always follow the environmental regulation and should be controlled the guidelines. These are the development methods which have been short-term targeted for the energy audit, for the fossil fuels and the reissue of material, for the CO2 emission level. These are the long-term efforts which can use by develop renewable energy sources for various technical purposes to develop efficient technology to have less energy profit. Now, the route which I am going to alternate for the disrupt the substitute for the fossil fuel is the biomass. Biomass having 2 methods. The first, having the alternatives of hydrogen, second biomass. We can see as per the proposed crypto protocol, we can see that as per the 1985, the coal ratio is about 85. But if we are using the biomass, we can decrease in 2050 as per 66 ratio. That's a huge number. And we can increase the biomass from 47 to 200. If we targeted this type of region, this type of sectors, we can plan to save the fossil fuel to near about of 1,000 years again. From 200 years to 1,000 years again, we can save the fossil fuels, and we can implement the biomass. We can implement the renewable resource. Current ratio of the CO2 emission 100, we can decrease from to 74. We can increase the ecological balance. We can increase economic growth. We can increase the health issues. We can decrease the health issues of the population of the people. This is the biomass iron ore steel industry factor. This type of context, each are contained as per the ratio in respect of agroforestry. Now we talk about biomass, but actually what biomass is all about. The second most fundamental thing, the two types of biomass is we are talking about. The first is the waste biomass from the steel industry, and second is the agroforestry. Agroforestry means the fastest growing species trees. The fastest growing tree species today's world is having different type of hardwood systems, having the high volatile matter in that. We should take respect for that, and we can indulge for the agroforestry concept and take that biomass in different wood chars. After wood chars, we should make for the pellets, and after the pellets, we can go for the DRI section. After the DRI section, we go to charcoal emission, then we go for the blast furnace, and after we get the steel without zero usage of fossil fuels. These are the biomass which having a different of equations level, which I have derived from that, having the 6 CO2 level with the H2O, having the photo sunlight, having the glucose as the wood, having the wood in the 6 hydrogen oxygen level. After we can emit about 288 kilojoule per mole of heat and light. This is the carbon cycle. Different biomass of the coal, having the biomass generation with man-made forest. It calls to industrial domestic use. After we go for CO2 formation, and after the natural forest, we have peat formation, fossil fuel formation. Again, for the industrial domestic use, CO2 formation. This is the cycle of carbon cycle emission by a biomass and a coal. This is the systematic representation of a man-made biomass in future to harden the energy and retard the increase in the CO2 level in the atmosphere. We can see in 2080, the heavy fossil fuel coal usage is rising the CO2 in atmosphere, but in the lesser natural penetration formation lesser. But if you propose the method, we can see in 2050, 80, we will have the man-made forest for the biomass to use to meet the additional energy need and go for the lowering CO2 in atmosphere. These are the merits, the limitations, where the renewable resources, which are best carbon, ideal for the tropical, and also the storing solar energy. But we have the limitations as per the climate conditions. That's our land, water, labor, the limited number of R&D, because many are nonetheless working on the biomass sectors, and finally the energy, forestry, and mechanization. This is the coke versus the wood char of scenario. We can see that the coke and wood char analysis having the high volatile matter in coke, but in wood char is approximately the high VM. We're talking about the sources of energy is having the maximum wood char other than coal. For the as percentage, the silicon oxide, SiO2, and different calcium oxide, and also the other elements is having the wood char is lesser than also in the carbon percentage in the coke. This is the biomass yield and the energy level. We can see in the casuarina, water hyacinth, sugarcane, alga, eucalyptus. We can see the energy of gigajoule per half year. Casuarina plants is having the maximum number of energies about 4950, other than year level 200. This is the hardwood species for the tropical area with acacia and also the Laconia, eucalyptus, casuarina, xyrophos, phosophyes, albiaceae is having the maximum number of gigajoule ton per. This type of plants are being structured. This is the plants are being, I have done the research in RDO, having this type of data are being fitted to get the best maximum number of volatile metal energy, less number of as percentage, and good for the biomass sectors. Now, a climate change is basically a threat to humanity and also a solution. We have an extreme scenario that the implausible economic assumption. We are talking about the storms, we're talking about the hurricanes, the complex relationship with the changes in temperature. We're talking about the floods. We're talking about the post-increasing and precipitation, but decline glacier melt, the small sea level rise, so the net effect. We can check this type of effect. We can get a solution, this type of effect. We are having always the vector-borne diseases, many factors from the human medications, biodiversity, unnuclear, pornographic, agriculture and increase. Many more questions can be raised if we not obtain this type of sources, the technology nowadays. If we use the technology, we're talking about the biomass, the sustainable development, the threats which are extreme from the climate are going to be reduced per day. And we can say after 2030 or 2050, we have a lesser number of death rate ratio for that scenario. This is the wealth conditions or about the losses in the billions of real estates. We can see that at 1900 to 2000 level, the huge amount of steel production increasing, but the ratios are been increasing day by day.
Avash,
This is the
sorry to rush you up, Avash.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
If you can wrap
This
up,
is the
please.
losses. Yes, okay, sure. This is
Thank
the
you.
losses in billion percentage. The ratio is decreasing more, increasing more. This is the other threat ratio to humanity. The poverty is the 2 billion lives on the less than per $2 per day, having the more diseases of AIDS, malaria, diarrhea, malnutrition, and other things. These are life expectancy of a birth and a GNI gap. Talking about this is the access to the safe water and a GDP per capita of the access to safe percentage rate. This is the final solution. The solution is should be the every problem there is a solution, and that's called the stepping. If we forward the step forward towards the technology, we can have should be the lesser number of deaths. If we promote towards the sustainable development in the field of industry, we can promote the biomass and steel making will have a greater impact in ecological balance. Finally, I conclude with metrics of sustainable processes, a more energy. Sustainable development is a farming chart of from biomass to quality the steelmaking processes. And this is the conclusion part where the metallurgical industries are using fossil fuels to meet the energy needs. To pandemic economic crisis, we should industry to implement the biomass sector for stepping down the economic rate to increase the production and also the ecological balances. Hydrogen biomass should have the potentially as the future energy source for the industries. And also the scaling down of the climate change can also resolve the dreadful problems by raising the hands towards sustainable development. This is my dreams. My dream is all about that cars that should be grown on trees, having the wood from the green steel runs as a bio oil, and this is the bio production. If we having this type of things, I think we can achieve a great success. From by this, I ended my research scenario. From by this, I thank you for giving me such a inclusive time for showing my research. And finally, I conclude to thank you.
Thank you, Avash. Thanks very much. Yep, can you make it like Jenny and Martha on the same screen with Avash and me? I would like to have a comment from Jenny and Martha actually on your presentations. But before doing that, Avash, well, we agree with all the content of your presentations that the developments for sustainable development, while we are progressing in technology, we are advancing in technology, at the same time we got to think of how to sustain the world. However, I have a question for you. Is the development in technology, let's say in biomass, accessible to our society? How accessible is that to our society? Particularly when we talk about the cost, how affordable is that to our society? Because like in Jenny's presentation on study number 3, Jenny just posed to us that, well, we got to make a change, I know, for our generations. But what the best we can do? we don't have the tool, we don't have the resource, and we are not really in power to take that action. Even our leader, as Jenny already posted in his presentation, even our leader doesn't really give that example. That's particularly in Indonesia. What do you think, Avash?
The most interesting that question you asked about, that what is the leading step ratio, is all about why the biomass we call, why is the fundamental, the benefit of biomass, why we actually accept the biomass. Now, basically, we talk about the health issues. We talk about the problems toward the technology. We talk about everything. We can say that every day a new technology are being invented. And we can also say every day the death ratio is also being increasing. And we can every say that every day the pollution rate is also being increasing. The most problem we are facing towards is that the health issues related to the pollution, related to the industry, related to the technology. This all is the cycle, a vicious cycle we are forming. Now, we talk about the biomass, why we should accept the biomass. First we accept the biomass is that to get the cheaper rate that we are getting from nowadays.
Yep.
Second, the most vital thing is about the economic growth will be increased day by day the country. The third, the sources of fossil fuel are not going to be endangered anymore. The fourth is the most thing, diseases going to be decreases per day, every day. And the fifth is about the ozone layer depletion. We're talking about the most greenhouse gases, the global warming, are going to be lesser in number of metric tons of a year per day to decreases the global warming step. If we take the forward step towards the green steel making, if we take the forward steps towards the biomass, I hope we can have a great future ahead. For this part, we have many countries are interested to work with that, especially I think some of the countries are visited for that to talk about the biomass sectors, to identify the problem rate, the country problem, the economic growth are decreasing. That's why they are implementing biomass. And I think, and they are actually counting number more on that also.
All right, thank you. Martha, any comments, please?
Yep. Okay. I read Bill Gates' book, Getting to Zero, and I know there's a debate between the people who want more indigenous knowledge and the hyper engineering, like to re-engineer nature. And it just seems like what you're saying is not either one of those, right? It's in between. You know, you're using engineering knowledge, but you're not trying to re-engineer nature, right? And does that make sense to you?
Yep.
And then my
Yep.
next question is that for the general public, it just seems like we get presented with these debates. I know that Vandava Shiva, right, wants to go back to farming. And she and Bill Gates are just at loggerheads. And it just seems like, I mean, in some places in India where she is, that's fine. In other places, right, you do something else. Can't we just really make lots of distinctions? And then the last thing is, do you get have you got any grants from the Gates Billionaire Club? You know, they're in this big club to give grants. And I just kind of wonder, it seems like they'd be interested in your work and all that sort of stuff. Does that make sense to you?
Well, to me, it's yes. I would like to ask Avash. What do you think, Avash?
You're talking about the grants that what we actually got from that, this type of resources which technology benefits. Am I correct?
Yeah, I'm sort of wondering if you're linked into that foundation, the Gates, whatever the
Okay.
name of the project is.
Okay, we are actually expecting to collaborate with one of the R&D, having the collaboration of Australian and Japan collaboration. We're also working with collaboration with the Indian governments, which is having some, lots of CRs, financial, and we are having the working to collaborate with very new people are coming from Sweden to having the collaborative ratio, having the biomass sectors. And about 1 month before a meeting, we have got that a decade has been done to decrease the production of a thermal power plant in Australia because they want to implement the biomass. But the problem is that they don't know the route which are actually been applied. So we have gather a meeting for getting a collaboration, and further study are being required to more about technological benefits. And if we do it so, we can have a great success in the upcoming future.
Avash, why you don't pick up us for that collaboration? Where you jump over Australia while ignoring us in Indonesia? Come on.
Actually,
Come on, Avash.
yeah.
We'd like to
Yeah,
have that
actually,
with you. What do
yeah,
you think?
actually, yeah, sure. First of all, Indonesia is a very good of the sources which are we know what are the sources are actually having the Indonesia. But the thing is that the power of authority is not to mine actually. That's the main problem we lack about, that we actually lack about the research. We know what the different country what have, but we cannot get to hands because they're the people who are sitting in the chairs for me up, they should take the initiative. But yeah, some research, some things, some numbers have been there.
One day
That's
for
why
sure.
we lack.
Jenny, are you still with us? Jenny from Wellington, New Zealand, are you still with us? Oh, Jenny gone already. Well, all right. Now it's time for questions. I would like to invite from our audience. Is there any questions? Please raise your hand. If there's any questions you would like to ask to Avash. Otherwise, we're going to have a closing statement.
I mean, I
So
could
no
ask
question from
another
the audience?
one.
If
Look.
there is no questions, well, we would
I
like to
could
have,
ask another-
Martha again, please.
I could just ask another, if nobody's asking, just how much do you know about this? There's two sets of billionaires, the Charles Koch guys who are fossil fuels forever, and they do so much harm, and then the Bill Gates guys and the zero. Okay, do you get caught up in the politics of that? Do people in your field, like, I don't know about engineering, but is there common, just a common dialogue going on about, okay, the Koch brothers were going to give us some money if we do this, and the Gates people will give us money if we do that. And is there a competition? Are there bribes? I'm just curious about what's going on because it's really important. And I'm, a lot of that's under the table, but maybe an engineer might know.
Okay, so actually the thing is that, yeah, you talk about the politics, you talk about the business. Well, the sector which actually I'm working is all about the technology, the research and the R&D development. And yeah, many things are happened, but actually I'm unknowing all about the facts. We are only the working all about the R&D sector and technology facts which are going to implement the research here and there. But fundings are going to be have to available from different sectors and scenarios for the benefits of the society, benefits of the country, benefits of the ecological balance. Yeah, that's only the thing which I am going to share that.
All right, thanks very much, Avash. There is an audience in our room who would like to ask questions. Yep. All right. Yeah. From the
I have
lady
someone
in our
more-
room who would like to ask a question to you, Avash.
I have
Okay, you
some more
can go
interesting, I
directly
think,
to Zoom
going
meeting
to
now,
biomass.
please.
Okay, thank you for the time for me. This is for me is really interesting about related green energy, and this is about how to build sustainability by engineering. Is it right? Yeah. In your last part, your last slide, I saw your plan about the car from wood. Yeah, the car from wood. I'm interested in this part because is it these solutions to reduce carbon emission? It is a solution. If we still use fuel from fossil, it is I can say this is no solution. Even you create the car with the wood, if you don't change to the green energy, green fuel, yeah, like me from chemistry, I want to plan to make the fuel from hydrogen fuel. You see, this is the new renewable energy. For me, I'm interested about your plan about the car from the wood. Thank you.
Okay, back to you, Avash.
Yeah, I think many more interesting about the biomass sectors in Indonesia. That's very good to hear about. Yeah. So for that lady, I want to say that, yeah, my dream is all about the cars from the woods. But how? We know the metallic body, the car, is made of steel. And we talk about the steel is made of the fossil fuels. The fossil fuels is also about the submerged part of the coke, coal, and everything. For to substitute that of a part, we are using the planting the biomass. Yeah, we can use biomass, we make the steel, we make the metallic body, we make everything cars. But now the fuel ratio we are talking about. The fuel ratio, I've already talked about the biofuel is all about the hydrogen fuel. It can be more about the electric sources also. It may be a different thing also. For the hydrogen rate, the lady which are working in the chemistry for the hydrogen rate, the most problem is in the injection modeling is about the hydrogen is basically are not right now hindered to working because accidental ratios are being taken off for that. So technology are going to be rendered, technology are going to be revised. For that ratio, I think of to use as a biofuel for that. But for that biofuel, we are taking the stepping towards the green ratio. Before we insist on green ratio, we're going to have a study of the how to decrease the ratio of accident using the hydrogen level for that.
All right. Thanks very much, Avash. Now it's already 11:05. I think it's time to wrap up. Well, Martha, back to you. We agree with your Aristotle virtues, and we would like to turn that into reality, into our action, into our daily activities. We agree as well to you, Avash, that we need to have that biomass. However, the question is still, how accessible is that to our society? How affordable? We are experiencing right now in Indonesia electrified vehicles. It's cost too much to the conventional vehicle. Therefore, the breakthrough in technology, if not accompanied by the affordability to our society, I think is a dream, just a dream. So next level to your breakthrough, to your example is that how actually to bring this technology affordable, accessible to our society in a way that we can have sustainable development by means of education. That's, I think, to wrap up and to conclude from our three speakers in the presentations. And still, I'm going to give you time, Martha. You still have your concluding remark before we finish up? Yep.
Well, okay, I would just say that how you think about religion matters for whether you're going to get sustainability, because it isn't just poverty. It's if the politicians can get away with ignoring it and get votes. And if people are trained to think things like, well, God will take care of it, right? So it's important how people think about God or religion in terms of sustainability, and no matter how much science you have. In the US, we have the most climate scientists and we have the most climate deniers because we're not educating our people. And then Panchasila is a much better foundation for this kind of education than the US Declaration of Independence is, because it gave people property rights that are destroying environmental laws now. So I guess my main point is Indonesia has a good ideology that can start from there. And then they really need to have, you know, a comprehensive education, but their poverty level is always an issue, and they can get exploited by international corporations more easily because a politician can hardly say no if a coal, you know, somebody wanting to cut your trees down or something says, I'll give you jobs, you know. But my thing is you do what you can do, and then the rest of us have to call out the rich and expose them. Does that make sense?
Yep. Well, Martha, thanks very much. It's so wonderful to me. Somebody from USA, from industrial country, from #1 country in the world, still questioning the significance of religions. Well, we in Indonesia actually, we are moving toward your country in a way that, as I said earlier, we're still doing the procedural democracy. The question about religion actually is the substantial democracy, but we are so ignorant. I don't know who actually asked us to follow you, to follow the USA in a way that we are so ignorant of religious values. That's the question of transforming our society in a way that you are moving, well, the Aristotle's virtues into our daily activity, into our daily actions. That's really a significant question to us, actually. While at the same time, our politicians are so ignorant of it. Well, then, we still at the university, and I believe, I trust, universities should move forward into it. And back to you, Avash. Any concluding remark before we finish?
Well, if we implement the sectors, the technology we are talking about for the further development, if we increase the biomass ratio for the ratio, I think 63 to 4% the rate will be cheaper than the actual using the thing. The second most thing that when someone should take the initiative to take step forward, and right now scenario is that it's only a beginning of sustainable development of a biomass. And if we increase the biomass sector ratio, we can have a great future ahead for in coming 2050 and coming 2030 as well as that. And also my concluding remarks is that, yeah, there should be also different types of diversity in the technology, and also it takes the religion, is also it's the education, is also the science. People should be jointly hands together to work with that, and because this is the scenario where we can take over the session, we can take over the research, we can take over the development, and by this, I think the world will be coming a great scenario in coming ratios in coming generations.
All right, thank you, Avash. Well, that's what we could do right now, and for sure, time is constraining, and we can have a communication. We can have a correspondence outside Zoom meeting, and for sure, we're gonna email each other for this thing. And finally, we finished right now. We already have a comment from each speakers, and unfortunately, we couldn't have a Jenny right now. I think she's gone already. Well, from me, thanks very much again, Martha, Avash, and Jenny, for having a wonderful presentation and wonderful time to have together with us. While we are separated by a territory, from USA is like 11 to 12 hours difference, to India is about like 3 to 4 hours difference, while to Jenny in New Zealand is about 5 hours difference. We are so different, but we can make it together by means of Zoom meeting. So wonderful, thanks very much again. And from me, finally, ma'asalam milaliko, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bless you, thank you. Back to the committee. And applause to us, thank you.
What an excellent presentation from our eminent speakers. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now we have come to the end of this International Conference on Religion, Science and Education 2022. I believe we have had productive and inspiring time together. I hope you found the presentation on this conference are informative, fruitful, and helpful. We would like to extend our utmost gratitude to all of the distinguished speakers, Professor Martha Beck, Professor Jenny and Avash Kumar, the moderator, the great moderator, Pak Rinduan Zain, the Dean, Ibu Professor Sri Sumarni, and the faculty members, the chairperson, Dr. Ja'far Lutfi, and the team who have arranged and made this incredible conference happen. Big appreciation to you, as well as to all of the participants for your wonderful collaboration. May God always bless us till we meet again.
أيها المستمعون الكرام، وصلنا إلى اختتام البرنامج، وأنا على اليقين أننا قضينا وقتا مثمرا وملهما. نرجو أن تكون العروض التقديمية في هذه الندوة مفيدة ومثمرة. ونشكر ألف شكر إلى جميع المتحدثين، مدير الجلسة، عميد الكلية، ورئيس اللجنة الدكتور جعفر لطفي، والمساعدين الذين قد بذلوا جهدهم في تنفيذ هذا البرنامج، وكذلك جميع المشاركين لتعاونكم الرائع. عسى أن يسهلنا الله في جميع الأمور. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Announcement please, ladies and gentlemen, attention. We will have short break now and we will invite you back to join the parallel session in the online Zoom rooms that have been arranged by the committee at 1 p.m. Should you have any difficulties or queries, please do not hesitate to ask the committee. Thank you.
الإعلان أيها المشاركون، يرجى الانتباه. الآن سيكون لدينا الراحة، وسندعوكم مرة أخرى للدخول افتراضيا إلى الجلسة الموازية في الغرف المعينة عبر زوم التي ستبدأ في الساعة 1 نهارا. إن وجدتم أي مشكلة، الرجاء من سماحتكم الاستفسار إلى اللجنة. شكرا.